podcast. Hell yeah, brother. Overload, brother.
Beats by @Smoke M2D6.
The Seahawks have narrowly lost in a one-score game to the Pittsburgh Steelers in week 1 of the preseason. So that's good news because I guess it doesn't really matter. This is another episode of Seattle Overload where we will be recapping that, breaking that down with the caveat of not having all 22 footage. So these won't be quite detailed takes, but we will come with them later this week. For now, we'll give you a brief overview, and we still have some scheme stuff to touch upon. Firstly, though, I had to deal with the Steelers broadcast, which, I mean, it's interesting hearing about an opponent a lot, but then I also don't really care when they're interviewing Steelers players on the sideline and talking about the Steelers ownership, and it's a bit lame, especially when Griffin, I believe, you had Michael Bennett as the Seahawks dude.
Yeah, I did. It was a lot more interesting for a Seahawks fan, I'd say, to have Michael Bennett on the sideline and in the booth a bit than the Steelers stuff. Mike Robb was good too as the color guy, play-by-play. I mean, he's a journo major, so he's built for this.
Yeah, I mean,
it's of Real Rob fame, the Real Rob report. So he's put in his dues. He was really good though. Like he could be doing this more often.
Rather than your nemesis.
No comment there. We've made amends. I got my Precore 10% discount off. Just kidding. Anyway, yeah, it was funny though. It was fun having him and Bennett.
Ty, did you get to enjoy Michael's?
Unfortunately not. I think like you, I am also a subscriber to DAZN as a non-American living Seahawks fan. And so, yeah, unfortunately I had to watch the Steelers broadcast. Got to watch some interesting quarterback things, some really sloppy play by the Seahawks at times, sloppy tackling. I'm sure we'll get into all that. But interesting game nonetheless.
Yeah, interesting. I usually like preseason stuff, but because there was no like big special teams plays from the Seahawks really, and I guess this can be the special teams part, and because the defense can tackle, which we'll get to, but
yeah,
I didn't really enjoy
special
this
teams
game.
couldn't really tackle either.
No, well, that was a massive problem. The pursuit angles were just a mess.
Yeah,
if Seattle sustains any injury to one of their starting linebackers, they're going to be a dime team because they cannot trot out DeBlanco or Muse or Nick Ballore. That can't happen.
No, but before we get to the defense, the quarterbacks are the main talking point here because we have a quarterback competition in Seattle for the first time in ages, and Geno Smith got the first half, and he finished with a stats line of 10 for 15, 101 passing yards, 6.7 yards per attempt, and 1 rushing touchdown. How did you feel Geno Smith did?
Yeah, he had a pretty decent stat line. He had the 2 drops, and then Noah Fant stepped out of bounds. So I mean, he could have been even statistically a lot better than he was, but he seemed sharp in quick game. I don't recall if they had a lot of deeper drop back stuff. He made some nice throws outside of the pocket. And then obviously he had that one really good seam throw, again, like right in that, 18 to 25, 30 yard range. That one was 21 yards, but that's where he thrives. I mean, it's not just relative to his weaknesses, like relative to the league average. He's genuinely good there in that arena, that area. It was a really well-placed ball, and you could see how like comfortable he was throwing. Like that's right in his wheelhouse. All of his best throws in New York look just like that. All of his best throws. I know we're going back a decade to West Virginia. That's the only tape we have on him, or college and 2 years of the Jets. That's what he does well. If he does something well, it's that. So it's good to see him do that with live action. What I am most curious about though is when he did scramble. One, it was good that he was still working the pocket for all that it was worth before he decided to take off. I think for the most part, he was keeping his shoulders perpendicular to the line of scrimmage, trying to stay in a throwing position, trying to maintain his throwing base. But he did. And then also he exhausted the progression before he scrambled. He wasn't dipping early. Now, what we don't know is he may have gone through the progression, still missed something, or he could have seen something and decided not to throw it, right? Like that's what we won't know until we get to the L22. I know the one of them where he scrambled near the goal line, they were in a 3-by-2 empty formation and they motioned the weak slot to the strong side to get into one of their 4-man spacing concepts.
Yep.
And which
into
gives
the
you
backfield.
right, which gives you like a really good, the most one-on-one isolated situation on the backside. They were giving I think it was Derek Young, a chance to run a slant, and it just wasn't there. And then immediately he goes to the backside.
The corner camped on it with inside leverage really well. He kind of knew it was coming.
Yeah, which is good, anticipation from the corner. That's good football from him. And then immediately he gets to the backside and he'll throw that over the ball route or the little snag or curl route in spacing without any hesitation, even if it's tight coverage. And I actually didn't see if anyone was open or not. So
that play, that the over the ball route that you talk about, the kind of like little spot route or choice route, that was well covered, which is rare.
Which makes sense.
I did
because
think
he will throw that.
Yeah, he will. But I did think he had a shot because the corner played low on it. They have a corner route from the 3 who's on the ball on the line of scrimmage. They have a corner route from the 3, and I think he had a shot at that. But then you can't tell because we don't have all 22. It's into a honey hole, and the safety may have been way over the top of that, and we don't really know. He also kind of he was sort of feeling out, I think, Charles Cross in pass protection. Charles Cross didn't lose necessarily, but the way he pass protected sort of showed presence of a rusher to Geno's inside, even though he hadn't lost. It was kind of that crossover, guarding the crossover deal. And so Geno kind of bailed on it before he maybe had a chance to. But yeah, that first quarter was that was a notable play. And then the rest of the first quarter was a lot of sort of, we don't know if stuff is open or not, but he's sort of standing there with good pass protection, looking at stuff downfield, which you can't see. And it's like, well, we have to assume that it wasn't open, but then I don't know, surely, especially against like the single high stuff, kind of just give a guy a shot to go and make a play.
Sure.
Then he didn't turn the ball over. But then also, there's a play where he got a delay of game where he's taking too long to look at the defense, and it's like, maybe he just needs to warm up into it.
Right. Yeah. And then the 3rd and 6 sack, that was another case where he is trying to get as much out of the protection as he can. But again, we don't know if something was open downfield. As far as the act of taking the sack, though, I think that's permissible on 3rd and 6 and you're in the middle of the field and you're not in field goal range. If it being 3rd down, try to see if you can make something happen. You got Michael Dixon. You're not really worried about field position, I don't think. But definitely throw the ball away on 1st and 2nd down, because you don't want to set up an unmanageable 3rd down. I don't know. It still would have been nice if he tried to throw the ball out or if he could have made something happen. Again, we'll know once we get the tape on it. But yeah, like last year, again, only 3.5 games, but his sack rate win and gun was extraordinarily low. He took some sacks under center, but out of shotgun, he is getting the ball out. So the fact that he was able to remain unsacked when he did try to extend the play, I think that's a good sign. But and then when the looks were there, the ball was coming off his hand quick. So there's a semblance of process there. I think he was accurate too. That's another theme. There was accuracy. He had the one miss in the end zone to Colby Parkinson. He got pressured and he put it in front of him.
I don't really think that was I thought that was one of his best throws.
Really?
Which is weird because they were showing like, off quarters or like off man, but then it turns into cover 0. They brought an extra guy through the hole right up his B gap, and he put it where only Colby could get it. And I think Colby got hooked by Norwood like pretty bad.
Yeah.
And I thought he should have caught the touchdown to tie. Do you remember that play? Or
Yeah. I thought he kind of hooked the arm around there and kind of spun Colby. So kind of surprised that there wasn't a penalty there. That was right before was that the one before the field goal?
No, that was before the touchdown, I think.
Before the touchdown? Yeah. So yeah, that play, I thought that was one of Geno's better throws as well. Yeah.
And then Griff, speaking to the process thing, he had the 3rd and 12 before the field goal where it was he got it was trips but 11 personnel. He had an outside hitch, then a slot seam route, and then a chip and release into the flat. And they were showing too high, and they spun into cover 3, and the corner overlapped the seam really well. And the backside safety, he's coming from the backside to the middle third, but he was getting over to that as well, I think. And the hitch, they got a curl flat player right under it. So it would have been easy for him to force it to the seam. But I mean, part of why the Seahawks like him, he didn't force anything. He just checked it down and they got a field goal, which, I mean, it was 4th and 6. So I think, so if they wanted to go for it, they could have, it's more, it's not great, but it's better than 4th and 12, or an interception. So, that was a positive. And then what really impressed me was his second quarter, where I thought the second quarter, and we should also say, because of the defense struggling, especially in the first half, the offense didn't have that much time. It seemed like they only had 2 drives in the first quarter, if that. And then, but second quarter, Geno really put it together. Some great play. Threw hot to beat pressure to Kenneth Walker.
He did, yeah.
Then
and he knew where pressure was coming too.
He did.
And
really smart. You can tell he's got that coaching kind of, they've spoke about it before, but he has that coaching kind of deal going on at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then he had that throw to Noah Fant, which is beautiful on the, it was like an intermediate route off play action. But
yes,
Fant didn't get his feet down in bounds, so that
did you guys
really
mention
amateur.
Did you guys mention the throw to Cade?
We're getting to that.
Yeah, that was great.
That was his best throw. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then this is the drive before we're talking about. Before that, then after the Fant thing, Derek Young dropped the football where his hands looked hard, and then and then Bo Melton got alligator arms and dropped the ball.
Yeah,
which would have been a 3rd down conversion or close to, and that was like a little in cut where Geno immediately knew where he was going with the football to beat the coverage on 3rd down.
And I think we really want to see what Bo Melton can do on a little drag route or slant route where he catches the ball in stride. Because his speed, especially going horizontally across the field, the way he can maintain speed while turning upfield.
Who caught the crosser on the mesh concept that Locke hit? Was that Melton or Young?
That was Derek.
That was Derek. Yeah. Which that
Makes
was
sense.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the drive after in the second quarter, it was like the 2-minute drill. Took 1 minute 56, so perfect time. Or 1 minute 46, whatever. They had a few timeouts, but that was really nice. That was where that really nice Geno throw came. He sees that slot defender turn and run with Johnson, man turn it, trying to wall the open middle of the field. Geno just throws it in, and it looked like Griffin's trend of hashtag Geno completion every day. It looked like one of those, accurate in the intermediate range. It really did, and impressive stuff. And that set up the touchdown drive where Geno, that was the one where he tried to throw it to Colby Parkinson, and I think he got hooked. And then he kept it on the RPO, nothing open, pump fake to create room, got into the end zone. Great drive, really well managed. And I mean, Geno makes me a bit uncomfortable because it looks like everything's bordering on too difficult or strenuous. But on that drive, he looked very much in control and in command. Even in the whole second quarter, for instance, beating the blitz by throwing hot, all of that stuff, and it just seemed to all fit together. And I think that's what Geno can be in this offense. So,
yeah,
I thought we kind of saw the complete package. I think we saw pretty much everything that we saw last year in terms of just his ability to run this offense and to keep the ball safe, and all that. So I think, I didn't leave this game really feeling one way or the other or any sort of difference from before the game. So about
Yeah.
Geno.
Well, one thing we didn't see though, and the same goes for Locke, is and maybe the opportunities weren't there. We didn't see any deep shots, like really deep
That's
shots.
true.
I mean,
Yeah.
the 21-yarder is still an explosive. But I mean, it's going to be a race for these quarterbacks. Who's the first guy to hit something down the sideline or on a deep post or deep over?
Well, I think my alarm bells will start going off a bit if that doesn't happen when Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf are in the
Right.
game.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they're like, that's literally the best parts of their game is that deep stuff. I mean,
Good one
obviously
as
they can do
well.
other things. Yeah,
Yeah,
Goodwin's a
for
burner.
sure.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so should we transition to Drew?
Yeah. Drew Woo.
Drew Woo.
From Geno come to Drew.
So let me get his stat line. It'll probably take me.
Here, actually, I got it right here. So he was 11 of 15, 102 yards, 6.8 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, 2 sacks, 17 yards, loss, 131.1 quarterback rating.
And I want to say he also had a drop, right?
I believe one of those was a drop. Let me see if I can figure that out.
Geno had 2 drops, and I think Drew had 1.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, I mean, yeah, both of them had fairly even stat lines superficially.
Which, to me, that actually took me by surprise because I thought Drew offered a different dimension. Like, not just the fact that he's mobile with his legs and he can throw on the run, but it just looked more like it fit the offense, like, which is such a sort of, what does that actually mean? But like, he seems more comfortable under center, which is odd because I'm not sure I expected that coming in. He seems more comfortable. He just looks more comfortable. It looks effortless compared to Geno. Like his release is quicker. It's not as sort of clunky looking. We've said he has the natural talent, and Carroll said as much as well. But
yeah,
the contrast of one half of Geno, then one half of Drew, that shone through to me.
Yeah, I mean, Drew Lock definitely. Like if you just put these guys in shorts and just had them go running around doing like quarterback trick shots, like all the guys in the league, and the dust would settle over a couple of hours, and you probably put like Drew Lock toward the top of just raw arm talents in the NFL. I mean, he is very few guys can throw the ball like he can. Before you even get to processing, decision making, and all that stuff, right? He's still more high variance of the more talented guys. I mean, he can spray it, like that one deep shot. Like he's really not an accurate deep ball thrower. I mean, we equate him with taking shots because the arm strength is there, but he's incredibly high variance down the field. He's also capable of an absurdly accurate throw downfield, but he's also just as capable of just throwing one, overthrowing by 10 feet or underthrowing it, right?
And that's a footwork thing, right, for him?
It often is, but like on that one, his feet were set, and maybe it's just a mental thing. Who knows? But like, if he's the starter, he'll hit them to DK. He won't hit them as frequently as he did to Russ, but he will hit them to DK. Now he did have Cortland Sutton in Denver, who is a good deep ball receiver, and his completion rate was like bottom 10 in the league to him on throws over 20 yards.
Yeah, and imagine what that would look like with Russ, with Sutton, like...
Right. I mean, Sutton's about to skyrocket, if he stays healthy with Russell Wilson. Like they are a match, on the sideline. So, but like overall, I think part of the reason why Drew and Geno still aren't really separating like for real yet is that there's a floor of play that they both share of just general comfort, and they're not doing anything disastrous, and they seem to be playing within the scheme even when they're not doing anything special. And I think that's a credit to coaching. Like both of these guys, their idealized versions, I think we're seeing the beginning stages of it flowering. That doesn't mean it will completely bloom, right? But you're seeing the foundation laid for it. Like he's not doing anything dumb in the pocket. He's not drifting when he shouldn't. He's trying to make, even if he could make a better decision downfield, there's still an idea of like, all right, I can still go to the low read. And he's making that decision quickly. At least he's making the decision quickly, even if it's not the right decision. And again, it's still very well maybe for him. We won't know till we get the tape, as the saying goes. But then also, he's not doing anything super risky, but then we still saw him make that really nice throw in the end zone to Colby that got batted away. But like, that's I don't know if you call it risky, but that's not a gimme throw. That's a throw that honestly only the premium arms in the league can make with consistency. And I don't know if he'll do it consistently, but fitting it over 2 zone defenders, tight window, putting it high where only he can get it. That's the kind of stuff that you see other guys do and you kind of drool over. Like, to me, when we talk about Drew Lock's arm talent, it's not him throwing 40, 50 yards downfield. It's him accessing zone windows in the 15 to 22 yard range with precision. Now, I don't know if he can do it consistently. I don't know if he'll always do it with the right timing, but there he did. And the opportunities that are there are only there so many times in a preseason game when you get, half the game to do it. But like, that's good stuff. And the fact that he can do that within a framework of generally safe play, that means that whatever coaching they're giving him and Geno, they're not putting they're not putting a leash on either of them, so it's cool that we can see that those kind of plays from them within a general framework of safe play. Though the one fade in the end zone that might have been interceptable, I don't know how the coaches view it, but just he's making throws downfield. We saw play action drift, like all the good stuff in the scheme.
Do you mean the back pylon?
Yeah, it's a Fuller.
Yeah.
The DB batted it away, but like, I think he could have caught that, kept his feet in bounds.
It was a crosser. It was like 2 crosses to beat man coverage. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that same thing that they've
ran with
probably,
Russ.
or at least a similar thing that they ran with Russ. Yeah.
What did you think of Drew Ty?
I thought he was. I mean, it's clear like the raw talent is just so much higher there than Geno, but and really there were only 2 throws: the back pylon throw and the obvious overthrow on the deep shot that really. Those were the only 2 bad throws, in my opinion, from Lock tonight. Of course, we'll talk about the fumble in a second because I know you want to get to that, and we'll talk about Pete's comments from that and what Drew said as well. But overall, I thought he made some really nice throws. We saw some different arm angles from him. Of course, Griff mentioned the throw to Parkinson that got broken up, but that was a fantastic throw. The throw that he had on the run on the 2-point conversion, that was very impressive. The throw to DJ Dallas, I thought that was one of Lock's better moments tonight. So I thought we saw a lot of great stuff from him. I thought it was great that that he was very much willing to take the check down, that he was very much willing to or not. He was not super aggressive, right? Because the thing that you hear about Drew Lock, or the thing that we've heard about Drew Lock, and the thing that we've kind of seen from Drew Lock, just looking back at the tape and everything, is that he takes a lot of unnecessary risks and makes a lot of dumb decisions. And at least as far as game 1 goes, and from everything that we heard from the mock game, it seems like he's toned that down a little bit. And like Griff said, I think that's a testament to the coaching here, and what they've been able to do here with both of these guys, really.
Yeah, that's it. I like what you said about the checking down to the flat. Actually, it reminds me of that. He got a nice start to the second half and his game, because he checked it down to Bo Melton in the flat. And Griff, you brought up Melton running across the field, but we also saw like his crazy kind of speed. Just he had a flat defender to his outside. He caught the ball in the flat and just ran up in the inside alley kind of thing, and suddenly there was 40 yards. Now, I'm sure a lot of things went wrong pursuit-wise from the Steelers defense, but that kind of just like easy speed, kind of gliding speed, that was like, oh, hello. And it was nice that Locks, he'd stared at an intermediate crosser for a bit and then decided to check it down. It was nice that was rewarded, and it's good for him to probably see stuff like that happen.
So the one thing that we saw in this, sorry, just real quick, the one thing that we saw in this game, they tried to make it work with the screens, and it just wasn't working again tonight.
Yeah, the screen timing, I don't know what's going on, but I think, like Griff says, it will. I think that's something where you sort of have to just practice it and establish it. Needs chemistry.
I mean, listen, I don't know what Eskridge will bring downfield, but he will absolutely eat up yards in the flat on passes to the flat, whether it's swing pass, screens.
Is he going to play this year?
Hopefully, man.
Yeah, that would suck if he didn't.
But I mean, I think he's the best run after guy on the team. I mean, he's like he can break tackles. He's contact balance for a guy that's 5'8". I mean, but we'll see. I don't know.
So I can't get off the fact with Locke, like his best stuff. I just so impressive. Like, you know, we've mentioned some of it, like that throw to Parkinson from the 3. I thought he was a touch late, but the fact he can do that is impressive.
You know, yeah, it was a good throw in that he can access that throw.
Yeah.
It kind of was behind him a little bit on the back shoulder, but I think that was partly intentional because
he tried to look the backside safety to the isolated receiver on the other side, and it didn't quite work, but it was right. And then like also, you know, he had command, like he was shifting. He shifted the offensive a couple of times, and Geno did the same thing. But like to see Locke do it, it's like, oh, this is nice. And then, you know, 3rd and 6, going to your mesh concept, beating the blitz. You know, that the bunch formation touchdown where he sees how they expand and just knows he's going straight to this guy, throws it, and so early that his guy can just turn around and catch the football. Derek Young for the touchdown. But then there's elements where, you know, it's suddenly like, I'm always just terrified that there's an impending bad moment with Locke. Whereas with Geno's almost the opposite, where I mean, unfortunate things happen with Geno when through his limitations, but not through perhaps, you know, mental errors or mental lapses. It's more, you know, maybe his talent deficiency. Sometimes that sounds really horrid, but does that make sense? Whereas with Drew, it's like, what are you doing? Like, he had that little period, 2nd 11, where he didn't like step up into the pocket. He tried to like back foot a throw, and it was almost picked by Norwood.
Right.
And then on the 3rd and 11, he overthrew a screen, not setting his feet, and afterwards he was like visibly upset at himself. And it's like, why does that happen?
There was a slight, you know, starting to unravel a little bit. But we're seeing less of that in Seattle with which very little snaps that we have available between the mock game and this game. We're seeing a lot less of that than we did in Denver. Whereas Denver, he could look perfect one play, and then the next 3 plays, it's like, what are you doing? So it's almost the reverse now in terms of how much of what. But that's an area he has to grow in. Yeah, with Geno, I think Geno's arm strength is so shocking because we have Russ to compare him to, who has an elite arm, and then Drew Lock, who has elite arm strength. I don't know if I'd say he has an elite arm overall, but elite arm strength. And then Geno, I think, you know, I still think we're talking about an average arm talent or average arm strength, and in some contexts have above average accuracy. But yeah, it's still startling to go from something elite to something average, you know, in terms of arm talent. What's really going to separate these guys is who ends up making better decisions, I think, in the drop back game when they go into gun, and it's going to like who's making more plays in the intermediate, because I truly believe, and I think that Waldron thinks he can generate under center offense with either of them. Would it be more fun to be able to run, you know, post cross with Drew Lock? Absolutely. But both of them can run drift. Both of them can throw out routes in the intermediate. Both of them can run boot stuff. Like, they're going to be efficient under center offense. I think at least at worst average. It's who's moving the ball in gun that is going to be the biggest question mark. And both of them had some good moments. I have to rewatch it back to see where these passes were actually coming in. But yeah, I don't know. We still need more data overall.
Well, on all of this, you know, I agree, but the problem I think with Geno is, if you're saying you can manufacture under-center stuff, that ability of Locks to throw on the run and on the move kind of unlocks more of that than Geno. I'm not saying Geno can't do it, but like the Melton play that I mentioned, Locks rolling across his body, like suddenly it unlocks stuff to the left. And I don't think the defense is expecting that. I still think Locke has a. I mean,
I agree.
We all agree
there's
he
more
has a
of a
higher
ceiling.
upside.
Yeah,
we all agree. But so then Locke had that strike to Derek Young on the strike concept, which Griffin
looked real good,
setting up with the formations, and he had 5-step drop under center concept where they played like match quarters, had his back on the 3 player, and checked it down to Dallas, another check down tie, and hit the touchdown. And then the 2-point conversion, throwing on the run again to Homer, perfectly placed. Nice little concept dressed up out of gun with a jet or fly sweep action, unexpected slide concept, which got open on the 2-point conversion out of trips. And I was like, oh, well, to me, Locke has to play against higher strings. Like, okay, it was weird how they were doing it. They were mixing guys through. He was playing with kind of the same level of talent as Geno was. They did a good job blending everything, it seemed. But generally, I think the Steelers had a weaker string out there in the second half. But I was like, you have to make sure that Locke maybe do like 2 series on, 2 series off in the first half. That may have been their plan, but I don't think they got as much. Maybe they had 3 on, 3 off, but they didn't have enough reps because of how poor the defense was. But then the Locke the Locke bad play happened.
The big oopsie.
Yeah. Well, actually, he like overthrew that seam ball that you talked about, Ty, as well. But I think that's because there was a seam ball's hard because you have to throw it over. He had to throw it over a curl defender, but then 2, there was like a middle hole, like safety coming down, and it was just a bit too much on it. But it's all right. You live with those. But then
you can live with it.
Yeah. He had the chance to win the game and he didn't, and it's unfortunate that's his last action on the field because that sticks in the mind, and the reasons it happened is worrying, right?
Yeah, and I know, Matty, you're going to have a detailed analysis of this later, but that just quickly, that's an area where Geno is legitimately ahead on the pre-snap administrative stuff, setting protections. Geno has that lead on Drew, and that is a significant variable. It's kind of like the hidden stuff that maybe is not as easy to pick up on a broadcast, but that's the whole arena where Geno's ahead, I think, still. So
real quick, do we think Drew starts game 2 on Thursday?
No.
I think they switch off quarters. I think they give Geno the first quarter, Drew the second quarter, and then maybe they give Drew the third quarter and then Geno the fourth. But at that point, you're going against like Joe Schmoes. I don't know how.
But Griff, how is Jacob Eason going to get
right? They're basically saying you're
not very good, but you may when we have to pick a starter, we may have to get rid of the other guy, and then you may become an assured backup. That might be what's going on here.
Right. He does have an arm, right? I'm not misremembering that.
I think he has 2 arms, Griffin. Yeah. But yeah,
do they have 2 arms in England? Just kidding.
Do you guys have 10 toes and 10 fingers in England?
I think so. If you count, but everyone's like, "Oh, big thumb. Is your thumb's not a finger?" Very funny.
Same thing for big toes. Does that rule apply?
I don't think so. I think they're a toe, right? But you don't call your thumb a thumb finger, do you? You call it a thumb.
It's true.
Right.
Yeah, you don't say big finger. Like you say big toe.
Yeah.
It's a good point.
So the Locke fumble, let's talk about it. Because that's the big play, and I think, Ty, you're saying, like, is he going to start? I don't think so. I think, if anything, Pete seemed like quite downbeat in the press conference. I think he thought they were going to win, and then he was really annoyed because Kenny Pickett beat them, and they had a massive pit celebration.
Now, if that play doesn't happen, and let's say Drew Lock does lead them down the field and wins the game, or like they get a field goal, whatever.
Oh, hell yeah.
He starts Thursday.
Yeah, he has to be because he's
that one play like did it.
Well, Pete, how do you win a game? You win a game in the fourth quarter.
That's true.
And
true.
Drew Lock kind of lost the game in the fourth quarter.
That's true.
2, it's all about the ball, and he turned the ball over. And was it his fault? Well, on the surface, a blindside rusher into your quarterback ain't really ideal, and you'd wonder why a pass protection call would let that happen. But what happened was the Steelers were showing their nickel from Drew Lock's right side was going to blitz, and the safety over the top of it was creeping down as though he was going to replace that nickel in coverage on the slot receiver. So Drew's looking at that, we presume. He's seeing that, and the pass protection slides out there. So they put 3 people for the potential 3 guys who can come. Okay. Now, on the other side, Drew's not thinking anything's going to happen. But what actually happened was the Steelers didn't blitz the nickel off the right side. They blitzed off the left side. So they brought one extra from that side, where the Seahawks only had 2 guys in the pass protection call, because it was a 5-man pass protection call. Seattle could have kept their back in and put 3 on that side as well. But the problem was they didn't. They instead decided to have the running back as the hot guy. So as they did earlier in the game, as Locke hit earlier in the game and Drew and Geno hit earlier in the game, you can hit the back as the beater for the pressure. So what happened is they brought 3 off that side. Drew didn't see it, and Seattle only had 2 guys out there, and Drew got sack fumbled. If Drew had seen it, he'd have also seen DJ Dallas, who'd got clean from anything and was wide open for the pressure beater. But unfortunately, Drew didn't see it, and he was sacked. Now, you don't know it's on Drew until Pete Carroll says he saw the same thing as what I saw. And then Drew Lock admits, yeah, that was my bad. So it was on Drew. That's unfortunate. And he should, as Griffin said, he doesn't have the same command as Geno. So
now it is something that is conceivably fixable. So, if for the half glass full people, let's see if he can, be able to set protections right next week.
And we should say Russell Wilson, in the heat of the moment, has sometimes struggled. Like Arizona Cardinals games, he struggled with hots.
It's a thing that Geno's legitimately good at. And I think we kind of need to, it's hard for some people to wrap their heads around the fact that Geno Smith is actually good at certain things. And I know like it's, you look at his only real tape again is like the Jets, and did not go well, but you can still, even like then, you can go back and watch that and see, he does some things well. So I don't know. We just need more data, more games, don't we?
Mhm.
Data. So
Data. And we're getting a game in 5 days. Quick turnaround.
5 days? No
yeah,
shot.
5 days.
Barely any time to watch the tape.
Yeah.
All right. Defense. The rookie corners thrust into action with Trey Brown out of the picture for the moment, although he's coming back. Sidney Jones out. Artie Burns out. It was a little rough for them. Matty, what did you see from the rookie corners?
Tariq Woolen had really bad approach angles. He couldn't tackle. He tried to undercut a ball and missed it, like he showed in college. He busted quarters to a stack with one running shallow. He didn't play very well. And then Kobe got big boyed because he's got short arms and he's not the biggest, but played pretty good at nickel.
Good.
And Woolen could run, but he was running and missed the ball. So
it's their first NFL experience.
It is.
And,
They were day 3 picks for a reason.
Yeah. I expect the good reports from camp to show up eventually, They
He
seemed
looked
a
good
little
in press.
That's good. They just seemed a little like unprepared. It's like things got away from them.
Lack of preparation. I think just generally for the whole team, it's a young team and they just
on the road.
I just don't think they were quite ready for, it's their first experience of it. Yeah. So got to give them some slack. And the tackling overall on defense, well, I mean, you spoke a bit about the slow linebackers at the start and how the linebacker depth is bad. And especially running these types of defenses where you're like wanting to cover guys tightly or wanting to push with a 3 and you're getting stretched horizontally, you need to have linebackers who can run. And the lower strings couldn't run and they weren't very good. But the tackling, Pete Carroll mentioned as being a massive issue. And it was like they couldn't tackle at all. If you can't tackle on defense, you won't do much. And the other things were, busted coverage, busted run fits, literally just like leaving a C gap just wide open and no one fitting it. Like, okay, that's interesting. And yeah, so I don't know. I just chalk this for the defense. Like they got reps. I don't really. There's no reason to panic because.
Yeah, Coleman. By the way, that slant that Coleman gave up on that 3rd and 6, he was playing it like he had rat help.
Yeah,
so, I don't know.
They tried to. The rat just went down to the running back. I don't understand it. They sent 5, and then the 6th dude.
Yeah, he just
doesn't
tacks on
rat.
late.
He just adds
sense.
on, and so Coleman's playing firm outside leverage, like you said, like he has a rat, and he didn't. So we saw
Yeah.
Gunnar Olszewski look like Julian Edelman, Wes Welker,
or Wes Welker, or
yeah, Andy Isabella.
any of those
who's
guys.
good.
Hunter
Danny
Renfro.
Amendola.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hunter
yeah.
Renfro.
That's a good
Let's
one.
who
Yeah.
Brent Burson, Cole Beasley,
Brandon Stokely, Seahawks
Brandon
legend.
Stokely. All these guys that are just very, very, very similar in many, many
Danny.
ways.
Danny Amendola.
Joe Jurevicius, Jordan
Adam
Nelson, Adam Thielen,
Cooper Cup.
Alec Pierce, Charlie
Cup.
Martin, all
Yeah.
6, 7 of them. You know,
Tanner McAvoy.
Tanner McAvoy,
Brian
Steve
Walters.
Largent, Brian Walters. We're just giving you guys some ideas
Cody
here.
Thompson.
Cody
Um,
Thompson, Rob
So-
Gronkowski, JJ
So one-
Watt if he played slot receiver.
Travis
What-
Kelce.
One
Travis
positive
Kelce.
was
I don't know about
Harrison
Travis
Smith.
Harrison Smith. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
You're back on track now.
Yeah.
one positive was. I mean,
Matty
other than
Brown,
a few scheme things,
Um,
other than a few scheme things, I'd be a good slot receiver. Other than a few scheme things, like they did like 6-2 tough fronts. They did for heavy personnel like last year. They ran a lot of even fronts.
they ran a lot of 4-2-5 nickel. What happened? I mean,
I thought they were
when
3-4. What the heck?
Yeah, it's
Display.
well. So like the principle there is they are trying because it's easier to get edge rush when you're in a 4-man front, right? They're trying to be juiced up on the edges as much as possible. But that said, we didn't get a lot of base personnel. So when they're facing like the heavy under center teams, we're gonna be seeing more of it, right? In base, we'll see more 3-4. But I won't be surprised if they still try to remain in a 4-down front somehow, some way. In a lot of different contexts. So that's the front. Really quick on the edges though.
Yeah, that's the big thing I want to talk about.
Mafe.
So boy, Maffe's sack. Okay, so hand and dirt, it seems like he has no false step problem because he can just fly. He can just power off out of his stance. I don't think when he's standing up, he's rocking and he tends to shift his momentum. He can time it up where he's rolling off his front foot like he should. His back foot's lifting up first. And he gets speed, depth on the tackle. He's deliberately cranking his hips and toes around. It allows him to square his shoulders to the tackle while he's running a curved path, swipe, rip, and then bend under. You can still see like his lower body was still in an awkward position as he was bending, but his get off, his play strength at contact, and his hips and toes were helping him maintain as tight a path as possible. That's what some of his best college reps looked like. So that's him taking to coaching, I imagine, like him developing the way he needs to develop. He looked a little clunky at times on the left side when he doesn't get the time up the snap well, just because he's not that fluid in his lower half. That's why the Cliff Averill comparisons drive me nuts, because Cliff Averill is as bendy as you can be in his lower half, but still really good things to see from him. We saw some speed to power off the left side, so it's really encouraging to see from him. But the other guy, Alton Robinson, coming in trim, like a full 15 pounds lighter per him. He looked really good. He's coming off the ball way quicker. And it's just like what we talked about in the last episode. When he's coming off the ball quicker, he is tough to handle at the top of the rush. I mean, he got into that rip and bent it, and the tackle couldn't do anything. He's just too stout through contact, bending through contact there. So really good stuff. He had a couple of good rushes. He was active all night. Taylor's fast. We know that. He got into the backfield a couple of times. Just with pure speed rushes. So that's really good signs to see from that group. Uchenna Nwosu didn't have a lot of reps, but he has some good speed of power. He looked the part. He had a good inside move. So good stuff there.
And our guy Miles Adams had a really good game. I can't wait for the tape for that, because I mean the standout was that 3rd and 2 quick swim to beat the guard on I think it was inside zone and get the tackle for loss to get the defense off the field. But he looked disruptive, had a toolkit, I think you said, Griff, of like pass rush moves. So exciting. Hands,
power, leverage, like, dude, he's got to be not just make the team, but you got to give him a couple hundred snaps this year.
Yeah.
Who we didn't see was Aaron Donkor, though. I don't think he even got on the field. Who was 48? 48 was doing some things.
Lakeem Williams.
Lakeem Williams, okay.
And we didn't see Josh Johnson either on offense. So there's a few like upsetting absences. Maybe they got Knox. We don't know. They're not like the marquee players that reporters would necessarily ask about. But yeah, and then
Oh wait,
up
Lakeem
to-
Williams is 46. Hold on.
two other scheme notes while Ty looks that up are, I mean, it looked like they were matching the nickel to like trips in cover 3, so like a stubby check, like looked like he was taking the seam, and they looked like they're playing more like Rip Liz, but I couldn't tell if it's cover 1 or not. But they were catching, so I think it was Rip Liz cover 3. So both seams matched rather than just the one seam and leaning, which has its negatives as we saw today. And then the other thing was they ran that cool double A gap look where the backers keep dropping out, and then it's like a coffee house stunt version where the guy to the back pretends to drop and then rushes back in, and basically it keeps the back in protection, and it means you can run like a 3 deep, 3 under fire zone, but your hot to 3 player doesn't have anyone to cover, so it's basically like playing cover 1 wrap, but with more kind of zone intentions, which, I mean, that's cool if you're nerdy. And then I guess we should probably mention the offensive line, who I thought did a fantastic job throughout.
I mean,
Real quick, by the way, Griff, you there isn't a number 48, so Lakeem Williams is 46.
Is it 40? It's 49 then.
49, yeah, that's Josh Onojiogu.
Okay,
Nice.
UDFA. So,
all right. I mean, he looked active. Maybe he's a practice squad stash guy that develops over time. I mean, he looks like you talk about how for 3-4 teams you want your depth guys to just be athletes that just kind of do stuff. Can he be one of those guys? We'll see. So yeah, but the offensive line, I mean, either Travis Homer is Barry Sanders or this is a very good run blocking unit. Now Travis Homer actually did look pretty good running the ball. Don't get me wrong. But Jake Curhan, he looks as good as he did last year in run blocking. I don't know how a guy that plays so upright gets so much movement on people, but he's just stronger than them. He's just moving people. I think Phil Haynes looked really good too. So did Damian Lewis. I mean, they were all run blocking well. Cross didn't seem to have any issues. He had a good down block on one of those counter runs where he has to wash out the end.
Yeah.
So
the mid zone was dominant, man.
It was really good, front side and backside.
They ran for like 6.1 yards per carry, 159 yards, 26 times. Like,
yeah, go ahead.
The Abe Lucas play where he's trying to seal 5-tech basically, so on his outside shoulder, but he's trying to get him to his inside, and he like latches on and then pancakes the dude to the inside, and it turns out that guy's like a 3rd string edge according to the Steelers depth chart that their media team handed out. But like, still, for a guy who we're kind of like, well, he hasn't had maybe he doesn't like blocking people, or maybe he just hasn't had the opportunity. But he had the opportunity today and he excelled. And then the pass pro gave the quarterbacks time too. Like the O line looked really good. Yes, it's the preseason,
the pass protection was. Charles Cross is what a top 10 pick looks like, man, at tackle. So that's really good stuff. Yeah, the level of comp isn't there, but he looked really solid. I think the guards held up really well too. But again, yeah, I'm really excited to really dive into that from the tape and see how it looked. But if the protection is good this year, it really defines the ceiling for the offense. And just saying on record, I think the ceiling for the offense is like dead average, and I don't think that's necessarily the most likely scenario of them reaching their ceiling, but I think it's attainable. So it'll be interesting to watch, but it will depend on what protection could do. Really good first outing for them. So like Geno's sack. Yeah, he could have thrown it away, but that was a coverage sack. Yeah. So good stuff.
Yeah, good stuff from the protection. Good stuff in the run game. Even from the second unit too. DJ Dallas had a lot of holes tonight. So
I thought he actually missed loads of cuts. Like
yeah,
and seemed really slow, but he went off. So
yeah.
I mean, so DJ does look quicker though than his first year. I thought he looked kind of slow-footed. He's not. It's startling because he's not, Penny. He's not Walker, but he's still better for himself. I still think he's a depth guy. But Kenny Walker, I mean, his average wasn't great, but he looks really natural, just gliding back there.
fluid,
Um,
and just easy vision. Like
Yeah,
the run blocking was really good for
the
him,
pacing. Yeah.
but the pacing of it, like the way he's able to cut when the hole's at his best spot to cut, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Like,
Oh, for sure.
yeah. So exciting stuff, and I guess the Seahawks play the Bears at home next Thursday or Friday for me, 1 a.m. And that's the next opportunity for us to see them. We'll have a tape podcast, hopefully come out on. Should we aim for Wednesday?
I guess so.
Oh no.
Yes. Let's
So
do
we
Wednesday.
record Tuesday.
Tuesday, I guess.
Can
Yeah,
we do that?
I can.
If the tape is out by then, yeah, I can do Tuesday.
Yes. Okay. So if the tape's out, then, and if it's not, then we're sorry.
Then Wednesday, and if not, then Thursday.
Fernando, thank you everyone for listening, watching. You know the drill. Like, subscribe, 5-star reviews, retweet, follow, etc., etc.
And go Hawk.
Oh, singular.
Go. Let's Hawks.